Go. So, hey everyone, welcome. Happy Friday. By the way, it's turned into Friday in a while. Um, it's I'm gonna roll the intro credit in just a second, but just everyone give a thumbs up if the sound is good. Just comment. Usually, I do these streams. The my usual podcast is at 3 p.m. Eastern, and then when I do a dash one, that's at 4 p.m. Eastern. But a lot of schedules had to be changed around today, so I won't be super surprised if there's different numbers of people watching live versus much later. But yeah, so we probably let me just actually, despite this like short intro thing, I do. By the way, I want to apologize because for some reason, with Odyssey's stream, it's still streaming on the last one instead. So I'm gonna have to like re-upload some things at the end of the day and like make sure that you know I'm gonna have to do some trimming so everything matches everything in the aftermath. But in the meantime, God bless America. I see you seem to be a big fan of that particular country. I happen to be located in said country as well. But yeah, so how's it going, dude?
Hey man, good. It's good. It's Friday. You know what? It's Friday and it's good. Ran on the beach. Life is okay.
Yeah, I can't really complain either myself. I don't know if complain's not the right word because I can't complain, but I can, I guess, I can acknowledge that I've got way too much stuff to do. Because,
I know it's Friday already. Like what the
yes,
hell?
all the rest of my day is spoken for after this. And then
Well,
I have to do a few things on the weekend, and then I have to travel next week. And then, so there's just all that stuff. But it is what it is. Let me actually just roll the official intro, and then we just kind of really launch into this. All right, here
sure,
we
yeah, you
go.
bet.
So, officially, then, hey everyone, welcome. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Dash Podcast. This is episode 220. So, for context on those numbers, I have, back in 2017, I did a project under the Dash DAO, and it was called Dash Force. And as part of that, we did like media and stuff like that. And we started this live show. It was every Friday at 3 p.m. That we did the Dash podcast, and then we did that from 2017 to the end of 2019, and then we lost funding for that, and the whole rest of the team went away. But I was like, I've been doing this weekly podcast for a long time. We have listeners. I don't want to let them down. So that was the
Yes.
entire reason I started this channel. My entire channel was to just give a platform for this, but also like explore, get not be Dash exclusive. So that I forget which episode it was. I restarted it, and then I was been doing it kind of monthly, not on the nose, just whenever there's some wonderful person to have on to talk. So that means it's been 220 episodes. For
Hmm.
reference, I just did 201 of my news show, and those that has been every week since 2020, except for some vacation travel days. But so yeah, there's a I put
Warrior.
a lot of these episodes. I'm joined by the one and only John Gotts. How's it going, man?
Hey man, good to be here. 220 is impressive. 201
Yeah,
is impressive.
yeah, just a lot of time, like a lot of time talking, and so sometimes like I you could wake me out of a like deep sleep and just be like, beep beep, alarm going off, run in, jump on the show. In 2 minutes, I would be very groggy. It'd be
Tink. You'd
obvious.
be right there though.
Nope. But then people ask, like, what do you want? If it's anything related to sort of crypto or things that I know something about, oh yeah, it would look like crap, but I would be able to run an hour long show out of a deep sleep just because
Your brain has to be what kind of index of information do you have now after 220 plus 201? So 421 shows, 441 shows rather. I mean, that's insane.
yes, but not to mention, and this is not like a pat myself on the back thing. It's just kind of a talk about the stuff. I do a bunch of spaces on X, which are audio versions of this that have a little bit more dead space, I guess, in them. And I've attended like five, six, seven a week, depending on like pretty for a while, and then been on other podcasts and talked at
I see that with
conferences.
you.
So basically, there's a reason why like I just talk a lot. I guess that's the what all this goes around to is I talk a lot.
But you're a hub, you see. You might be talking, but when you have that many spokes plugged into you, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
plugged into their podcast or they're plugged into you in yours, you're a hub. So the amount of information you've put together, I got to ask, in all those conversations, what has been the, if there even has been a discussion of it, what is fair value? What is crypto fair value? You've had 441 conversations. What conversations have you had, Joel, about fair value?
This is actually is an interesting
I want to
thing.
get deep. Like I just want to
Yes.
just dive right into that.
Well, I have a few thoughts on that I'm as I'm kind of gathering them. Um, let me. Oops, I have to do. So I have to while I'm gathering them because, believe me, whether you believe me or not, you're not the first person to be on this very podcast talking about the fair value of Dash. There's been another friend from a long time ago. Again, that was a while ago, like a few years ago, I should say. It was since it was on this channel, right? So, yeah. But I'm gonna go hit my little sponsor thing real quick because
Go
CoinETM
for it.
Radar, has been more than generous enough to sponsor this. This is
Heck
podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever
I'm gonna
used it
step
before,
out
but
of screen for a minute, but go.
that's
Go for
fine.
it.
It's I
Yeah.
put them on the screen anyway, so you can hang out wherever. Because anyway, this podcast is very proudly sponsored by CoinETM Radar. And when buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting a random person in a random place. And of course, unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you do truly own all the crypto that you buy. With CoinETM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if an ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geographical area such as country, state, or city. And you can check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. Find out more, go to cointmradar.com, which is CoinATMRADAR.com, which is spelled COM, in case you didn't know that. All right. It's safe. You can come out of hiding now. But
I'm
to
back.
basically, there was a friend of mine, I think, who came on and talked about fair value and kind of addressed a bunch of different metrics, such as transaction volume, transaction like total like amount, not number of transactions, total volume, like number of users, like all these kinds of things, and then total supply, like fully diluted valuation, all these other things to basically just see like apples to apples, what should this be worth, and yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. You hear this, and I like for me, this is my perspective, right? So I started using Dash middle of 2016. I think it was like the first time I used like the network to do. I got paid in it. Did some other things. So that was around $7 a coin market, like current market price at that time. Of course, with a very much lower supply, because it had relatively high inflation for a few years. Has been tapering down 7% a year. Is now somewhere in the 3% or something, and going down, of course. We during the glory days people talk about are 2017, when I remember the coin get over 1,600 per coin, right?
I remember that.
The Dash today, and like I look at these metrics, I don't look at all the metrics you do by a long shot, right? Because you're actual like deep researcher. I just look at some casual surface things just for some context. But there's more Dash users than there were in 2017. The technology is infinitely better. The actual utility, as far as like where can you use it, where can you acquire it from, how well does it work there, is way better. As far as the efficiency of the development team and the efficiency of the business and marketing side of things, as far as everything else, like Dash is so much better than it was then, not in terms of how much money is in it, right? As far as like the value of people's holdings in it right now and what can they get for it. Definitely not as far as like, I guess, reputation, and like everyone in crypto knew what Dash was. These days, not everyone does. It's not nearly as much, and it's harder to get things going. You used to be able to say we're Dash, and then they just integrate you. Now I have to like talk numbers. I have to be like, well, what if we run this marketing campaign? If you do this, what if there? So for me, that's what fair value is a little bit. Is I don't like those two numbers should not be so radically different. Like I would be willing to accept that Dash is worth less maybe today than it was back then, because maybe it was way overinflated then. But I wouldn't. But this like astronomical difference is just like does not make any sense. I mean, it makes sense in terms of that's how the world works, right? There are supply shocks, there are pumps, there's other things. But as far as like, is this the actual utility of this thing? It doesn't make sense. So that's, I guess, my concept of fair value is it's kind of a little bit more of a let's find a valuation that makes more sense consistently, whereas the ups and the downs and stuff, it changes like year by year, day by day, and the fair value seems to be a little bit more like let's take the ups and downs out of it and just this is what this is what all things considered it probably should be at least that's my kind of conception of that. What do you think, by the way?
I think you nailed almost all of the metrics that are important, Joel. That's what I think. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
first of all. So clearly you've been listening to a lot of voices, like I said, and there seems to be some consensus on value, which is interesting.
Yeah.
When I spoke with, well, I hope to be working with him in September. I've only talked through direct message with him so far, but Jared, the founder of Digibyte, he came up with a number that he thought was the fair market cap, and we've never ever worked together. And his number was within 8% of my number. So that gave
Interesting.
me real hope about that, right? When I worked on Litecoin's numbers, they were the first one that I really took a look at. I was tested by some of their core team members, and they got enterprise OpenAI, and they got I think it was a $10,000 Glassnodes account, and like an $1,800 on the block, and they did these different things because everything comes down to numbers that we
Mm-hmm.
can't see, numbers we don't know. I'll get to that in a moment. But essentially, um, I was right about Litecoin's numbers. I'm right about your numbers. I'm right about Digibyte's numbers. They just happen to be, you and Digibyte happen to be the two most undervalued coins that we've looked at. Doge, for instance, I think it's like 20x undervalued. Ripple is almost fairly valued. We looked at it around 397 back in December. In October, it was at 60 cents. You would have loved us saying it was 397, but then it almost hit 397. Um, and it hasn't gone up since December because they just keep diluting it with more and more coins entering the market every month. So that's their problem. If they'd quit doing that, they would have gone up in value, in our opinion. Um, then you look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, our fair value for Bitcoin right now is, I think, like 112, and it's
Mm-hmm.
around 112. So that's about fairly valued. And so it's not that every coin we look at is so grossly undervalued. By the way, in 2017, the fair value, we think the fair value was about $1,600 a coin. And it fell from there. So did a lot of coins because adoption fell. And
Mm-hmm.
adoption is a number that we put 70% of our weight in. And so I'm just looking at the numbers in front of me here. So it went from 1600 to 1480 to 1570 to 1630 up to 2137 in 2021. It went to 2137, and then it fell back with waning again, but not too much waning, 22 and 23. And then 24, we think it went to 4,200. There was the release of Evolution. There were a lot of things that you guys were doing that you were finally releasing in that we believe are going to draw even more adoption. And the numbers that we've seen so far suggest that they have. So what I look at is, and when I say me working with AI. Okay, I didn't come up with this on my own. And without I believe, Joel, that it would be impossible to collect these numbers in real time. It's
Mm-hmm.
just too vast what you have to accumulate in research to make a number, to
Of
give a number.
course.
Okay, so do you believe this? Let's back it down to this.
Well,
Comps,
before
comps in the
yeah,
marketplace.
before we get to there, let's
Yeah.
do a couple of like let's getting further back for a second.
Okay.
First of
Okay. Sure.
all,
Yeah.
everyone knows your name because I said it. But who the hell are you? And what do you do? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Right. Oh, Wonka Wonka. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a clown, huh? Yeah, no, I go back quite a ways in crypto and everything. And I guess I'm a clown. I've never gone to college. I'm almost 60 years old now. But I'm a hub and I've plugged a lot of spokes in along the way. If you want to go way back to my interest that affects fair value,
Mm-hmm.
literally 12 years old, Joel, I used to ride my skateboard, TF Hunting, and then go to the Lansing Public Library and read annual reports. Fair value meant something to me. The PE
Mm-hmm.
ratio, Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett studied under him, became one of the wealthiest people. So my trajectory was always equities, and then it was startups, and then it was venture capital, and then it was trying to understand why these ICOs weren't illegal coin offerings, illegal security offerings. Because
I
if
mean,
you
they are.
take money from a group of people so a management team can make a profit for these people,
Mm-hmm.
that's literally the definition of an of a security. So anyway, I worked with some of the top, when I really got involved with crypto was 2014, 2015, 2016, 17. I started talking to these founders. And I remember describing going to the consensus meeting in May of 2017, and I met with Ryan Taylor of Dash, and I was just blown away by his idea for master nodes. I think he's an ex-McKinsey guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. Sharp, sharp dude. Really impressed how he put together a way that you guys could fund your projects that were going to build applications around, like all of this stuff he did. I just thought was absolutely genius. I was putting together the first self-regulating body, and I was inviting in all of the founders of Ethereum and all of the top coins. I met
Mm-hmm.
with Jed McCaleb, who is doing stellar. I met with Charles Hoskinson, who Dan and Stan Larimer, yeah,
Yeah.
the whole stack, right? Okay, but I wasn't really so focused on working with them guys in the audience. What I was interested in was their lawyers. I wanted to talk to their
Mm.
lawyers, and I talked to all their lawyers, and I was the hub. And I plugged in 48 lawyers by the time my journey ended in 2018. 2017, 2018, I ended up with Roel Campos of Hughes Hubbard and Reed, who was Elon Musk's lawyer when he got in trouble in 2018 saying he was going to take Tesla private for 420. It was a weed
Mm-hmm.
joke, but he
Yeah.
got called to the mat by the SEC on a Friday at 1 in the morning, essentially. And they said they wanted him to step down as CEO, step down as chairman, $2 billion fine, $2 billion fine for Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to reach Rowell. It's Friday. I'm trying to reach him Saturday. I'm trying to reach him Sunday. Can't get a reply from the man. So I text him and say, I'm going to talk to his wife, see if he's okay. He calls me. I said, what's going on? He said, I'm with one customer, or I've got one client. It's taking all my time. I said, is it Rowell Comp or is it a lot? He says, well, it's coming out tomorrow, John. Don't say anything. And I said, all right, I know how to settle
Mm-hmm.
this. You cannot look what Tesla's stock has done since they announced. They're supposed to protect widows and orphans. They're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to protect shareholder value as the SEC.
Of
They have
course.
fucked up. They have fucked up badly. Okay, and their reputation's going to be they drove the most innovative man since Steve Jobs out of the country and all the jobs
Mm-hmm.
and everything with it. Instead, $20 million, 20 million for Tesla. He steps down as CEO for 1 year. He stays on as chairman. They get a slap on the wrist. It looks like the fastest award they've ever gotten because they get $40 million and it's closed. They don't look like assholes for the rest of their lives. And he moves forward and they move forward. And it was a big fucking mistake on this part. And this is their get out of jail. He's like, well, shit, Ilana would like that. And that was literally the settlement. That's who I am. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with that. Okay. I came up with the first self-regulating body. I wrote a paper on why Bitcoin is a commodity, and it was presented to Chairman Clayton and the commissioners through well. And 20 days later, they called Bitcoin a commodity, and they didn't give me credit, but it was absolutely based on 10,000 hours of my work. I'm certain of
Mm-hmm.
it. Okay, so that's who I am. So I believe that I had at that time probably the highest level of understanding of compliance in crypto, bar none anywhere. So as I've been watching this, I started wondering, you know, why is it that we trade on FOMO and FUD? Why isn't there a fair value methodology like Benjamin Graham had for equities? Because prior to
Mm,
1947, Joel, everything traded on FOMO and FUD.
of
And
course.
surprise, surprise, huge movements. 90% crash, 35% takeoff crash. You know, FOMO FUD. He said, let's put a formula under it and let's compare it to a benchmark, the 10-year treasury. And in 10 years, would you get a bigger return on equities if you were getting the earnings? So he started saying price of the stock, 20, divided by earnings, $1 per share. $20 divided by 1 is 20. If it's growing earnings by 20% year over year and expected to for the next 2 or 3, fair value. If it's growing it at 10%, it's too expensive. It's twice overpriced. If it's growing it at 40% next year and year after, then it's half price. It could go
Mm-hmm.
up twice that price, right? I think that's what we need in crypto.
Mm-hmm.
But that's who I am. So
Yeah.
I'm the John Gotts is the Benjamin Graham of crypto. That's my goal, is
Mm-hmm.
to make a fair value model that everyone can follow rather than FOMO and FUD charts. And if you look at literally anything in the market, there are comparables. Joel, if you're going to buy a piece of property here on the beach and there are 5 lots for
Mm-hmm.
sale, and you have one in the middle, and the ones on each side of you all sold for $1 million each this month, and you're going to sell
Mm-hmm.
yours this month, how much should you probably list it for if you want to? It's $1 million, right? I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
like comps. And how about a car?
Yeah.
How about a painting?
You look at what
How,
else. What else is kind of valued? Yeah. So on this
yeah,
first, because maybe get a little bit granular on that part, but as far as the
pretty
concept of
basic on that.
fair value. So what does
Mhm.
fair mean here? Because you hear that word everywhere. Crypto has fair launches. There's like paying your fair share in taxes. There's all these kinds of like fair usages. So the fair value. How would you define the word fair in the equation of fair value? Then what makes it fair?
I would use it in the context of the P ratio being
Mm-hmm.
is equal to fair value, right? So
Mm-hmm.
P divided by U is equal to growth. Well, that's growth is fair value. It was interesting. You don't have to have earnings, right? Because in the case of Amazon and Google and those, they
Mm-hmm.
broke the model of P divided by E because there was no E because they were buying Zappos and Whole Foods and other things, Amazon. They didn't have any E. Why pay taxes on E when you can spend it
Mm-hmm.
to? So it became the free cash flow value, CFV. But again, they come back to value. And when you say fair, I say fair as compared to everything else in the market. And in this
Mm-hmm.
case, the benchmark that we set was where Bitcoin was in December of 2024. When we plant that flag and plant that pin right there,
Okay.
everything, including Bitcoin from that point, has to compare to that. Because the unique thing about December of 2024 was that $100 billion was all funneled into one coin. It had 65% of the total market share of all crypto. And it was $100,000 meant 19.83 million coins equals 1.983 trillion. So the fair value, when we say 100,000, understand that's cosmetic, right? If there were 21 billion coins, it would have been 10,000 a coin, right? It's cosmetic. It doesn't matter to us. But what matters to us is that market cap,
Mm-hmm.
the fair market cap for our digital gold standard benchmark, not the Bitcoin standard. It's the
Mm-hmm.
digital gold standard. It relates to all digital gold, which we consider Dash and Litecoin and everyone to be digital gold, okay? But if you're going to be a digital gold cryptocurrency commodity, then let's compare you to where Bitcoin was then, including Bitcoin, we'll compare to them. And it was 80 million users. It was 6 billion transactions. It was $13.49 trillion in transactions. It was 904 developers. These are all averages, right? So it was between here and here. And so we take this number here, right? Okay, the low average. And we give them a network power score based on what it costs to 51% attack them. I know your friend Jason said 5 billion or something on Bitcoin. Ours is 50 billion, and we do it for 1 minute, one full minute of attack. What does it take for one full minute of attack? But when you look at that, then it doesn't have to be just proof of work. You could look
Mm-hmm.
at proof of stake and you've leveled it now. It doesn't matter. This is how you compare them. What does it take to 51% if you could, which you can't? Right, because if you were buying more and more coins in proof of stake, you'd be driving the price up. Other people would be coming in. You wouldn't be able to do it. Just like proof of work, as more computers are being added by you, other people are adding computers because they're not winning
Yeah,
anymore,
or
right?
there's
So
just not a supply of ASICs on the market, for example.
you're not going to get there. It's impossible. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could magically wave a wand and own the market for 1 minute, what would it cost? And we look at that cost at $50 billion. Then we look at the rate of inflation and then we look at year over year growth. Okay. That's it. That's what the market was willing to value and put 100 billion behind the value of $1.983 trillion. Okay, then. That means then that if Bitcoin, let's compare Bitcoin before we compare Dash, if Bitcoin then fell to 40 million users and we weight that 70% network power score, that 50 billion attack, that's 15%.
Mm-hmm.
And we take into account developer ecosystem at 5%, patching things and creating new things if there's going to be new utilities in that. And then the transactions and transaction value, we each give 5, 10 total. So that's 10, 5, 15, 15, 30, and 70 for adoption. We weight it like that because without adoption, you have nothing.
Of course.
Look at Tribe, look at Friendster, look at MySpace, look at Facebook. It goes away
Mm-hmm.
if you don't keep innovating or whatever. We'll see what happens with X. So adoption is everything because it'll drive a developer ecosystem. If there's adoption, there'll be developers for it. There'll be transactions because there's more everything.
Yeah.
Right, you get it. 70%. So that means then that if Bitcoin fell 40 million instead of 80 million and fell to 3 billion instead of 6 billion and fell to 6.5 instead of 13 trillion, wouldn't they then be worth half and maybe even less because they're falling? You're now
Mm-hmm.
predicting where they're going to be in a year or two, and you don't want to necessarily buy them at this price. Okay, then, if that's the case, then Dash is worth what we said.
Yeah. So let's start with a little bit of like poke holes in the thing because
Yeah.
my like as a the whole preference, my interest should be in being like, yeah, great, you're right. I should just, I'm
Don't
feel so
smoke the
like
hopium. Put it under a
pure
microscope.
like huffing the whole copium on like the ventilator. Like huffing the copium is kind of
Hopium, not
cope.
copium. Copium, you're
Well,
coping.
well, that's what
Hopium,
I'm
you're
saying.
hoping. I
But
hope
I'm
you're at
not
least
saying
hoping.
copium because it's like coping for where you are. It's like, yeah, your shit coin's worth
Oh my
nothing,
God.
and you're just
Yeah, yeah.
saying it's. My mom says that I'm a handsome boy, and my coin's worth 4,000 or whatever, right? So, a couple questions on
My
that.
mom says I'm a handsome boy. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, well,
So,
sure.
like, let's take first off the benchmark. Um, why you kind of answered a little bit, but like, why was the benchmark of December for Bitcoin? Why was that specific number chosen? And is it
Mhm.
possible that maybe that's too high of a benchmark, which obviously would not affect the relative score? So it's, and this is worth this much relative to the other one, but it would affect the absolute numbers. So like, what if say Bitcoin is actually worth 40,000, and therefore something like Dash is worth, still probably more than it is now, but like it's where do we
Right,
get so
right, right,
what
right.
if
The
what if we're
metric would.
wrong about the 100K Bitcoin thing being the benchmark? What if there's a better benchmark? Do you think that's possible?
Sure. Let me take Bitcoin right on out of it though.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is take Bitcoin out of the equation. Don't call it Bitcoin. Just say that the market was willing to put a value on a single coin so much so that they put a tenth of $1 trillion into it in a single
Mm-hmm.
month at a specific value. If I was to tell you that this hat is worth $50, well, it is if someone pays me $50, Joel.
Yeah.
And if 20 people offer me $50, I might raise the price to 55. And if they're still paying it when it's $500, well, then it is worth $500, doggone it, because I've got 20 people lined up that want another one and I run out of them. at
Mm,
$500, right? Okay, so let's just agree then that nothing is worth anything unless someone's willing to pay for it.
of course.
A tenth of $1 trillion is a lot of money in
Hmm.
1 month that went into one coin that represented everyone's emotion because there were no numbers behind it, their emotion about cryptocurrency. It bottled it up that was
Yeah.
65% of all the. My belief is that part of the reason it went there is because it gaslighted and kept people not looking at everything else was a shitcoin, remember? So don't look at
Yeah.
Digibyte, don't look at Dash, don't look at Litecoin, don't look at, right, everything else is a
Yes.
shitcoin.
And to sort of interrupt, but also sort of validate that, I would say today, especially, a massive amount of valuation in Bitcoin. Like I would even say most of it is not because of Bitcoin itself. It's the emerging digital asset space, and this is the one that is considered to be proven. So therefore, all the demand, there are no substitute goods right now, according to the market. Really, there the market right now is saying if you want to invest in valuable the digital commodities, Bitcoin is the one, maybe Ethereum a little bit, maybe Solana a little bit, but everything. But that's how you invest in it, and it just hasn't been like these are the spectrum of commodities.
That's right, Joel. And remember, there was a saying once upon a time that you'll never lose your job selling your client IBM.
Mm,
Believe it or not, that was a saying. Now IBM doesn't even make computers; they're a services company. But there was a point in time where they were computers, and who heard of Mac and Apple
yeah,
rather, and right, or
my parents had an Apple
Dell.
too. I have used the OGs.
Sure. But Dell and Gateway and all of these came along and Acer and they all took chunks of the market and IBM went away. But the point is that we're at that point in the market where everyone thinks there's only one company that can make computers, and it's called IBM. And everyone, it's safe to put your money there, is what you're saying. I'm saying it's safe for the brokers to put the clients in this because if this goes to zero, they're not going to lose their job because everyone was putting their money in that. So it
Hmm.
becomes the safe one to direct your client into, whereas everything else is unknown and is scary and you could lose your job. What? You put them in XYZ coin? Are you nuts? Pack your bags. You just lost $1 million of our clients' money.
Yes, I'm sure there's a
Right.
lot of money in the safety. It's almost like
Huge.
the fact that
Remember,
the fact that there's one safe option, whereas or rather maybe I should say that there's a lot of no money in unsafety, right? Where
so what you're saying
yeah,
then is that we need a fair value model
hmm,
that will allow the regular people before CNBC tells them it's okay to go in the water. They can look at this model and go, oh, yeah, apples for apples. Well, yeah, then why is Dash worth that? It should be worth that according to this. And by the way, there are people like Peter Lynch that made a fortune going, oh
hmm,
shit. And Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, he made a fortune because before the whole market started waiting to be told what to do, he understood the formula and he went and did it and he became the richest man in America at one point. So Joel, what I'm saying is it's time if you want everyone to come in the market to coins other than Bitcoin and for the whole digital coin space to rise, there has to be a fair value metric that everyone can agree to
hmm,
and apply, and then the whole market will go to 10 trillion.
yeah. So then the I guess the follow up question then is what is the intersection of fair value and present market value at any one time? Meaning, let's just like, obviously, I'm asking like the dumb questions a little bit because that's like through simplicity, sometimes we find truth, right? Where, like, okay, so you're telling me my Digibyte or my Dash or whatever is worth like 100x. The fair value is so much high. Like, how is that informative to people other than like this is the data that comes into it? It does make sense, but does that have anything to do with saying it will be priced by the market at the actual the actual coin market cap? Coin market cap and Digital Gold Foundation will be saying the same thing at some point. Is that kind of what it is, or is it something completely different? Like, why do anyone care about fair value other than to make ourselves feel better? Like, how does it interact into real money, the real world? What do you see it?
I believe that logic almost always wins. Almost always wins. Common sense almost always wins.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying we want the world to learn trigonometry, calculus, and some higher math. We want them to learn if that's worth this, and that's worth this, and that's worth this, this is probably worth this.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at every single thing that's priced literally in the market, it's comp to something. We have to
Mm-hmm.
put a line in the sand. If $100,000 is too high a price, then the model, showed exuberance at the peak of a market that's never going to be that high again. It was all tulips. From here on, it's zero for Bitcoin, right? Well, I would disagree. What I would say is no. What we know is that if you can ever attain this much money coming into your coin, this much transaction volume, this many users globally, then you're worth that much, even if Bitcoin falls away.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a line. That's why I said you have to take out the word Bitcoin. What we looked at, and you can't, I wish I could have told you, Joel, that I looked at the top 20 coins and this was their average. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're shooting for. Because that would be, in your mind, a better, and in my mind, I thought about that too. And the Litecoin, they thought about that too. Should there be an average of coins? The problem is they were gaslit. The problem is they never got to see fair value as compared to what Bitcoin received in looking at
Mm-hmm.
these measurements. So it's not fair to price those in because they were never given the light of day. There was shadow put all over them. Don't look there,
Mm-hmm.
they're shit coins. Don't look there, right? Just put your money here. So what I'm saying is I don't care if it was exuberance. The fact is it was all in. That was where all the money went in December. All the money
Mm-hmm.
flowed into, there was no altcoin season yet. It was about to take off. They were trying, right? But January was really a great time for altcoins. But in December, the Biden administration was still in power. Trump hadn't taken office yet. Yeah, we'd elected a pro crypto president. Yeah, it sounded like things would be good. Nothing was in stone yet until January when he was sworn in and Congress agreed and it was over. So there was a little pullback. But in December, we can all agree $100 billion went in to the market and just happened to go into this coin and these were its metrics.
Yeah, I guess
We
that
could
does
wait at
make sense.
65% and weight everything else 35% and try and measure it. But again, I don't like that because this is a real weight then on that value because it was being gaslit. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think Ethereum right now is worth more than I think it's worth like 3.6 trillion. And why? Because they have more users and they have far more transactions and transaction value with all the gas floating around for all their tokens. So if we value things based on innovation and utility, then Bitcoin might have been overpriced, but the whole market was still underpriced. There's my answer.
Yeah. So over, first of all, the concept of fair value, how many years has this been around? And do you happen to know any data, like just basic, kind of, you know, guesstimations maybe even, but as far as the how fair value tracks or precedes market value, is it?
I do. I do actually, Joel, because it happened with Benjamin Graham. Look at the
Yes.
value of the total markets before anybody was safe to go in the water. We
Mm-hmm.
just had like a 90% correction in the market in 2020, 1929, and by 1945, it had just barely returned to where it had peaked. Just barely. People were moving in the water very slowly. They didn't want to get bit by sharks again. Benjamin Graham comes out and says, fair value is this. This is how you can now judge everything you're about to invest in versus just putting it in a 10-year treasury and we had just won the World War II and,
Yeah.
treasuries were a good safe bet. I'm telling you right now, that market went from, I want to say, hundreds of millions of dollars, and I know it's inflation adjusted, but it went to tens of trillions.
Mm-hmm.
So if it can move like that, That's what will happen to crypto. Instead of it being a
Yeah.
$3.5 trillion market trading a trillion a day, man, it could be $10 trillion trading 10 trillion a day. And look at the wealth that we create when these fair values come into play, and all those people that rode those coins up to those values, and how much more value there is now in the world when there's 60 billion of Dash floating around, 60 billion of Digibyte, and that's just its current fair value. It can grow from here.
Yeah. So
So,
let's
what's the downside?
yeah. So let's kind of give a, you know, again, breaking it down into the simple terms sometimes. So like the value. Let's just say people have a horse. They use a horse for work. The horse is not worth just like an ant, like a random beast of whatever. A horse is infinitely more useful than say a cow because of people have used it to as their vehicle to like transport. They've used a beast to burn. Like there's the horse has really shaped human history as this like technology, even though it's an animal, right? A horse is worth this much, and then you get a horse like a horsed carriage, and you get the horseless carriage, right? An automobile, and let's just say the automobile is trading for way under it's way undervalued at some point. It's a comp of the horse. The horse does XYZ for people. The automobile does the similar things but better. But at some point it's cheaper, and at some point things will get repriced necessarily. Is so that could be considered like a fair value. The fair value of this is way under this because people haven't discovered yet. They haven't really priced it accurately. Then later it does get priced accurately, and then the actual market price is closer to the fair value. So does that actually happen historically a lot, where you have an asset that the fair
In
value?
literally every single market that gets disrupted. So, for instance, Nokia used to sell at a premium, and so did
Mm-hmm.
BlackBerry, and they're both gone now, or they're in a new iteration
Yeah.
of what they're doing now. I think it's security for Nokia, but they're doing something new. For your analogy, the price of horses went down. At one point, though, there was a different price for a draft horse that was going to be pulling your carriage than a
Mm-hmm.
saddle horse or a
Of
hunting
course.
horse. Right. Okay. And so just like coins and okay, but then the cars came along and then there were different prices. If you were the last buggy maker or buggy whip maker, you probably went out of business too. Right. At some point you got priced out because you had a competitor in the marketplace. We don't see that in crypto. Right now, there are much better coins than Bitcoin. Dash is arguably a better coin. Digibyte is arguably a better coin. Litecoin is arguably, I can go through a list.
Mm-hmm.
But Bitcoin holds the title for what reason? They're a horse and buggy. They really are. Or maybe they were the Model
Yeah.
T. Maybe they were the Model T. But you know what? There are better cars now. Now with the analogy too, though, let's stick with cars. I think that Tesla took over the entire premium car market as a percentage of total car sales.
Yeah.
Wow, whoever thought? And you know what? Tesla, that was laughed at one point when they first started with the Roadster, its market cap is now more than all of the other global brands combined.
Mm-hmm.
They don't add up to the value of Tesla. What? So talk about just like BlackBerry and Nokia were flipped by iPhone. The cars, they got flipped by Tesla. And so why shouldn't Bitcoin get flipped by Dash? Why shouldn't it get flipped by Digibyte? Why shouldn't it get flipped by the next coin some brilliant young guy or gal is thinking of right now in their garage or on their way home from a job they fucking hate? And they're thinking, man, I could do it this way and it would be different. And then they grow a following. And then that following likes their coin, and then they put their coin out and they buy their coin, and the coin starts going, well, yeah, but what's the value behind that coin? And I believe everyone's ready for a market where you get it on merit,
Mm.
not because you're the cool kid in class and you were there first. No, we're going to bump you right off that hill. And in that case, Bitcoin, oh, gee whiz, what if Bitcoin falls down? Well, it wasn't really there then. It was overpriced, to your
Mm-hmm.
analogy. I
Yeah.
heard Jack Mallor, who I never listened to. I don't listen to Michael Saylor either, who I didn't listen to your podcast. I'm sorry I didn't because I heard that you were
No.
discussing Mr.
Just
Saylor. But
talking smack, but
yeah,
um,
exactly right. But
yeah, of course. So, well, here's I guess another
they
question.
don't want
So,
dilution.
So it seems like, actual valuation as far as like current market prices, come and go. They're whatever. The actual,
They will reach fair value. If everyone
yes.
embraces this, it will even out. And the way it will even out is everything will come up to fair value. Look, Ripple is at 397 fair value. Today it's
Mm-hmm.
trading at 297. It was at 360. Fine. Doge needs to come up to like a buck 68. It's trading at like 22 cents. Okay. Cardano needs to come up to like $6. It's trading for like 80 cents, 90 cents. I think it shot up from 80 to 90 today. Good for it. It needs to go up to 5. Are these outrageous values spreads? No. Now, Digibyte, 332 times it has to come up to get to fair value from a penny to $3.30. Dash, you guys need to come up to clearly nearly 5,000. So you
Mm-hmm.
guys have, in my opinion, about a 250 x spread between fair value. You two have the grossest misaligned values. They've got to come up.
Yeah.
They have to. Period.
Well,
Well, if
so
someone knows something I don't, and you guys, your coins are about to go to zero because everything's about to go away, and I don't think that's true. I know
yes, I
that's
mean,
not true.
obviously that's not something that I would believe, right? Even
It's not true.
or
I've
if
talked to the
I
dev
would,
teams
I
too.
wouldn't be doing the
Oh,
Dash
here's another thing,
podcast.
Joel. Here's another thing. Here's another thing.
Yes.
My plan is to talk to funds. I want to talk to funds all across America about buying into my fund. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk to I want to talk to investing capital to say, hey, look at our fund. What is our fund going to invest in? Our fund's going to invest in these coins. Absolutely. I'm going to talk to, and I am talking to state treasuries. I believe I'm talking to all of them in October on stage in one event. Okay. If I get that chance, my opportunity there is to tell them what is crypto fair value. None of them are going to buy any coins in crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Zero. Doesn't matter what legislature is passed to get votes and contributions in crypto. The person who pulls the trigger is the treasurer, and they're not going to do it. They've told me this. Not going to do
Mm-hmm.
it. But if there was a crypto fair value and they could follow this model and methodology and they could watch it in action for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, eventually then they could. But it will literally take something like my model to get the biggest curmudgeons. And when you talk about money where your mouth is, man, I mean, I believe that billions of dollars should start flowing. If 100 billion flew into Bitcoin in December, there's no reason we couldn't see $100 billion flow into all of these coins. There are about 20 of them that are undervalued, in our opinion, that we
Mm-hmm.
follow.
Yeah. So one last skeptical kind of question bit
Yeah.
before we sort of start getting into these numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, on the whole, or as we've covered, fair value is kind of like is market value before the information gets out, right? And it does fair value meets market price kind of on the whole. How many instances have you seen or do you know of that not being the case, where you have a fair valued asset that's worth well and a
Toys R
lot
Us.
of and as I'm
Toys
saying,
R Us and
all
almost
the
GameStop. If
yeah.
it gets manipulated, Joel, if it gets manipulated, if some short sellers come along and they don't care how high you want it to go, they're just, for whatever reason, they're just going to slam you into the ground. They're going to keep selling and they're going to sell ghost shares. They're going to phantom shares,
Hmm.
naked shorts. They're going to do whatever it takes. If you have somebody like that running against you, and maybe Dash does, maybe Digibyte does, I can't explain it. What's keeping you down? Because even understand, I heard
Hmm.
Binance has has a billion. Is it a billion? 4 billion. I think they have 4 billion Digibyte, and they just trade them back and forth and sell them off, and they don't do anything. They keep it right there. Imagine if they just wouldn't sell until 332. They'd now have like $12 billion
Hmm.
worth. Why wouldn't they? So my mind is blown. When is fair value going to meet reality? I have no
Yeah.
idea though.
So I guess that there's like everything works out in the end on the whole, but
It all comes
have
down to
there?
fear, doesn't it? Fear and greed.
I guess
The most people,
how?
it'll be fear.
Yes. Well, I guess how many cases have you seen historically of fair value never meeting actual value because some just don't make it that long? Like plenty do. Like let's just say there's 10 coins that are all way undervalued according to fair value. 8 of them end up being accurately measured, but the other two just end up going to zero over time, and they never made to break out to actually
Right. So do you
get
know why we
valued.
do a monthly and not just one a year? Is because we believe that just like equities, the fair value is always looking at future growth. So if growth is slowing or growth is dropping, then we drop our measurement of fair value. In other words, a stock prognosticator can come out today and say, I believe that Apple is going to this price.
Hmm.
But then something changes in their supply chain and they run out of something and they can't finish those orders. And then they adjust their numbers and revise their numbers down. We'd have to do the same thing and we will. That's why we do monthly, certainly
Yes.
quarterly.
So I guess that sort of answers my question. So what I would care, how I would then phrase the answer to that question
Things die.
is yes, things do die, but you do see the fair value showing that on the way down as well.
Right,
It's not just
right.
that even if the fair value, even if it never reaches, let's just say the fair value of Dash is 4,000 whatever right now. A year it might never get anywhere close to that in actual fiat valuation, but by like let's say next year where we're still waiting for it to get up there, the actual fair value is now at 2K because there's metrics going down, and then
Well, now,
eventually
but wait,
it
no,
could
no, 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 because
hmm
let's say what you're talking about is Dash failing, and right now with
yes.
evolution, they're doing the exact opposite. And so my argument would be that no, in fact, my numbers right now might be low because right
Hmm.
now, have I really expect next year? No, I've just tried to come up with what's fair value right now as compared to that. I haven't even really taken into consideration future value because most coins haven't even grown into their fair value. So why even talk about what their future value is going to be? Except to say that if anything is slowing, we take note of that.
Hmm.
We take note of that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
But
so
what you're
that
saying is if Dash's numbers fell off, wouldn't Dash be worth less? Yes. But if Dash's numbers go up and the
hmm
price of the market still has Dash at $200 or $400 or it's still 1,400 or but it still hasn't caught up with what we now say is $5,200. We're still going to
yes.
keep pricing it at fair value and we don't give a shit what the market thinks. We're going to tell you apples to apples, this is what it's worth. If the market doesn't agree or never catches up, but my guess is what's going to happen is that once someone goes, shit, man, everyone sees what we see, it's going to fair value. Better buy some now. It becomes a self fulfilling prophecy that drives the price up. And then people are absolutely focused on future to decide should we buy more? How high is the price going to go next year for fair value? Where
Hmm.
are its earnings? Or rather its transactions and its developer growth, et cetera. And now the announcements that Dash would want to make is we're having these meetups globally to increase the number of Dash users and awareness. We are
Hmm.
going to be having hackathons globally to try and get more applications built around Dash. And those metrics then an investor can look at and go, I see you guys doing this. And I can see that you did this last year and grew by this much. So I trust that since you're doing that again this year, and now all of a sudden you're bringing in people
You
and
need
you're
that
more
quarter
like
on quarter growth.
well, it's, if people want to behave like securities and commodities, then you might as well just fucking go for it, I say.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
Yeah,
If you know
so
what the metrics are, now you can embrace something and move metrics, move the needle, as it's.
yeah, so so now let's go retrospectively. And
Mhm.
so Dash was in January of 2017 was 10 or 11 USD per Dash. And at the end of the year, which certainly more adoption, better tech happened, but not that much, got up to 1600 USD during that time. So, according to, I guess, all that we've talked about, what's your
It was almost
analysis?
fair. It was just over fair value, by the way. There was a
Yes.
little more froth. So what happened to
What
the
was
whole
the fair
market?
value at the peak at that during 2017? Was it like
I can tell you.
1400? Was it like 1000? Was it like where did it kind of get?
Let me see.
Yeah, it just you know because obviously these things cut in both directions, and it's this could never be a oh we're so valuable no one likes us kind of talk because
No, I mean the
you
whole
have to
market
we
fell
have
off,
to
even
acknowledge
Bitcoin.
yeah we have to
Uh,
acknowledge that we had a amazing run Maybe
Well,
undeserved,
okay.
who knows? But in 2017, it was an epic run that no one was complaining about.
Okay. But Joel, just
Yes.
remember that the .com had its day in
Mm-hmm.
the 90s all the way up to about March of 2000. You couldn't lose. If you blew your nose and said .com at the end, you could raise money and you could go
Mm-hmm.
take it public 3 months later. It was crazy. Lycos literally went public 3 months after it was launched. Crazy. And they did spectacularly well until they all went away.
Of
Boom.
course.
There's your 2017 moment. The 2017 moment for us came in 2000 when we watched all these .coms just evaporate. Amazon went from like $95 to $4. That sounds like a correction in crypto, right? Some never came back. They got
Mm-hmm.
rolled up. Lycos, Dogpile Search. There was, oh
I
gosh,
rem-
there was so,
listen, you are upsetting me because you're reminding me of my age, despite my relatively smooth skin. Because I remember when I switched to Dogpile. I was
and
like a Yahoo
Yahoo and
search. Oh my gosh.
Excite and
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so you remember
GeoCities.
Lycos and Excite and all these, and they all went to zero. The same thing here. We're going to have a shakeout, and we did. And there will be coins that go to zero. Dash doesn't deserve to be one of them. Digibyte doesn't deserve to be one of them. Okay, frankly, Blackcoin doesn't deserve to be one of them. Just
Mm-hmm.
because nobody on their team knew how to market.
Mm-hmm. Of
Right.
course.
So right. That was their problem. Nobody knew how to go sell their coin to the market. So there you go, Joel. I say that we are ready and it is time for a market. The fair value, I was looking up for you, sorry. The fair value here
I'm gonna throw it up
in
on the screen. I have the post that you shared.
well, you have the post that I shared, but you were to asking for historic
Oh yeah.
numbers.
Well, let's look at the
And I
historic
wanted
ones
to,
first.
well, the historic ones, you can put the July up, but the historic numbers of fair value, setting supply of Dash. Well, I'm looking at Dogecoin. I'm like, these numbers don't make any sense. That's because I'm looking at the Dash numbers, or the Doge numbers, rather. Okay, Dash report. There we go. Let me pull this up. All right. So pull it down to, okay. So fair value for us in 2017 was 1600. And then it fell to 1481, and then it fell to 1573, and then it fell to 1634. That was the lowest it ever was 2020. In 2021, our fair value was 2137. Our fair value was just under 2 grand in 22. In 23, it was 2120. So you were just kind of oscillating there, but you weren't going down in your numbers. And then in 24, you had a big spike because a lot of good things were coming out in 24 and 25. And so the whole market kind of returned to sanity. And so the fair value then was $4,200 in December of 24. We're talking very, very, very end of the year. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there to the start of this year, if we're looking at month over month, you know, understand that we do not know exactly what your growth numbers are. Some of this is just us predicting based on what we see in your social media, as far as what we see as far as your products and what we see as far as your community and their response to your products. But we have you just going up so slightly every month until we do another super deep dive again at the end of the year. So in June, we had your value at 59.3 and 47.54. And our numbers for you guys right now. Okay. By the way, you could tell me how far off am I on adoption? I've got you at about 1,055,000 holders of Dash that are accounts, not only native wallets with non-zero balances, and you got to also think some people have multiple wallets, but we're trying to figure out what are your numbers on the exchanges? Because Kraken might have a million out of 10 million people there that hold Dash, but they might hold it all in one wallet. And so
Yeah.
when we're out there searching with AI, we see one, but it could be a million. And so the only people that have the Merkle trees that'll show it to us is Binance. Can Dash talk to Binance and ask for your real numbers in the US and outside the US on the two different Binance exchanges?
So I'm sure we could ask how far we get
They'll
as a
provide them.
different.
Litecoin said they'll provide them.
If you ask,
Yeah.
nice. So yeah, this is something we're kind of leading up to that towards a little bit towards the end about this stuff. About kind of like what to do. A couple more things first.
Well,
So,
but let me ask you the
yes.
price though. Okay, I got you guys at $4,855 a coin. Well, all I care about is market cap. So I've got you at 60.8 billion. And what I'm saying is, if I take a look at your adoption, and let's say it's a million people, 1,055,000, I'm looking at adoption for Bitcoin of slightly more than 80 million. So if I divide 1 million, let's just do some easy math here for for your audience to understand how damn close I am. And I think this is why Jared Tate with Digibyte and I were so close. If I take one, two, three, well, I don't even do it that way. I can just say 1 divided by 80, right? Because it's 1 million divided by 80 million. So, okay. So I'm going to say 1 divided by 80. Oops, dang it says 11 here. Come on, clear out, clear out. 1 divided by 80 equals 0.0125. If I multiply that times what is the current market cap of, I'm going to go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's current market cap right now is, oh, no, but we need to take it from that date. But right now it's 116,501. But if I type in times 116,471, your price would be 1455. Okay, 1,455. So yeah, so the number's off there a little bit, quite a bit actually, 3x. And so then you have to say, okay, but where are you closer? Well, Dash has a really high network power score, actually, because you guys you got to understand. You understand. Your audience might not. You guys have proof of stake, and you also have proof of work, and you have a network power score of 9.19 as a result, which is really high, because that's essentially saying that you're nearly what it would take to attack Bitcoin. It would almost take 10% as much effort to attack you guys because you're spread out across different
Things, yeah.
different what would you call it? Proof of work and
Consensus,
proof of
yeah.
stake
Different security models, let's say.
security models. Thank you. Okay, so that brings you guys up a lot. Developer ecosystem, you guys have 128. Well, they have 904. So like you guys have like 15% as many developers as they do. That's a big deal. So you see,
As a
because
random
we
aside on
wage,
that,
yeah, yeah.
there's a little bit of backporting that Dash does from the Bitcoin code base as far as like sharing that, but it goes upstream as well. There's quite a few commits on the Bitcoin repositories from Dash developers as well. So like Dash developers do build on Bitcoin, build Bitcoin itself. So just a little fun little fact out there.
That's cool. Yeah, I know. And Litecoin is like the beta test for anything SegWit or anything that Bitcoin does. There's a lot of interaction between parties, but that's where we are. We believe that Dash has a lot going for it. If our price is off and it's $1,400, well, shit, man. Just straight numbers, just what I just told you right there, just straight numbers. Dash should be $1,500. You're $20 a coin. Grossly undervalued.
Yeah.
Now, somebody wants to argue with me about my metrics and whether or not 70% is too much weighting or too little or any of the rest. Yeah, I'm willing to debate anybody about anything, Joel. But in our model right now, we've got you guys at $4,800 a coin.
Yeah. So, well, a couple things because, with each one of these things, it brings up more questions. So, as far as it sounds like for the security score, hybrid models do really well, right?
Digibyte's
Now,
also got a high score.
so how, just in general, mining, like proof of work versus proof of stake versus hybrid, generally speaking, how do they tend to perform? I would guess proof of work is lower than proof of stake, right?
Yeah, it is. And then I'm just actually pulling up Litecoin because I think it's a great example. Network power score for them in June was 8. Now, they have supposedly around 9 million Litecoin holders. Okay. So they have 9 times more users potentially than Dash. I don't know if these numbers are right on either of these.
That's probably
You
accurate,
know,
I think.
okay. But they have a lower network power score than you. And they should probably
That
have
makes
one
sense
even
too.
lower than that because they merge mine with Doge or their number would be even lower. Mm,
Yeah, that makes sense.
right.
But again,
Yeah.
like all that definitely makes sense. Real quick aside, because I did wanted to ask this, but we're kind of like getting past that. So a little bit of a rewind.
Yeah.
So we had like the 1600 peak in 2017, and then the crash, and I
Hmm.
mean the crash down to where it's at now. What would you consider as from your analysis? What happened there? Like
I
what
know
made it?
exactly what happened.
Yeah,
No
go
one's
for
ever
it.
asked me.
Oh, I
Ha!
want to know. I want to know.
Cool, man. All
Yeah.
right, cool. No one's ever asked me that. I can also tell you why the dot coms crashed. Y2K had it. Everything to do with it, and I could explain that. But the problem was Ethereum. Ethereum was the problem. The reason the market crashed is because I would run into these guys in 2017 who were like
Mm-hmm.
19 years old and they just raised $1 million or $2 million for their new coin and they'd raised it in ETH. It was a token on the back of ETH. And these are
All the
these first
dumping.
token creators, right? Okay. Yeah. And Tim Draper's a part of this. And, oh, he bought in early and Coin
Vitalik's our
Idol.
advisor.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
no.
right. Ah, right.
So many of those.
So many of those, and but it was Coin Idol, and it was Coin. There were these other colorful online newspapers, and they would pump the shit. You could pay them.
Mm-hmm.
You could pay them
I
like
know.
50 grand, and they would do like 10 stories that week, pumping your ICO, and then you'd do a pre-ICO, and these guys would come in and they would buy it all up in seconds. And I'm talking like Tim Draper and these guys. Okay, buy this all up in seconds. Sue me if I'm not right, Tim. Okay, buy it up in seconds, and then go back on Coin Idol and pump, 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 pump. Tim Draper's an owner. Go look it up. And
So,
then on the new
fun
one,
fact,
it
by the
would
way,
sell.
about Coin Idol specifically. Um, I know the founder of Coin Idol because he gave me my first crypto job. He was the Cointelegraph editor at the time, and I cold emailed. I quit my fiat job with nothing else lined up, and I was like, I'm only taking Bitcoin.
Badass.
And then
Ah, ah.
I emailed Cointelegraph like the couple weeks before Christmas, and it was just like I just cold emailed, and within 10 minutes I got an answer about like, hey, do you want to start on the story? I'm like, yes,
Oh
great, and
yeah.
that's what got me into it. And then he founded Coin Idol and stuff, and there's a bunch I can't
They
I don't
did really,
I can't
really
say,
well.
but the point is
They
that
did
was my
really, really
entry into the
well.
space.
Oh, I love it. Well, okay, but listen, at the end of the day, ETH price kept going up. When I first got into looking at these guys and their tokens and that, ETH was $14. When
Mm-hmm.
I ran into the guys at ETH in May, it was $42 and we were partying in the back of a limo like rock stars, like thinking like everybody's blowing up. Okay, what
Mm-hmm.
happened to those guys? ETH went from $42 to like $4,000. And in that run, it was like 1,500, 1,700. But the point is, these 19-year-old kids that were sitting on $1 million at 40,
Mm-hmm.
at 420, they were sitting on 10 or $20 million in ETH. Okay. At $1,500, these kids, and some of them had raised $10 million and they were suddenly sitting on 50 or $100 million in ETH. And then it started to sell off. Bitcoin started to sell off. And then they were watching their 100 million turn into 80 million. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but motherfucker, you just lost $20 million today. Are
Mm-hmm.
you panicking?
Of course.
Yet, okay, well, you wake up in the morning, it's 64 million you have. Wait, I had
Mm-hmm.
100 million 3 days ago. Fuck, sell everything. Sell everything. Fuck it. And as soon as that happened, the whole thing unwound. Every treasury holding ETH was like, fuck, get me to the exit before it's zero. And it went from 1,400 to $85. And at that point, all the ETH was out of the treasury. Everybody had gotten rid of their spoils. It was fucking over. And from that point, we could rebuild.
And so
That's what
that
happened,
and
Joel.
that hit the rest of the market.
Well, that was the whole market. At that point, like all
Mm-hmm.
of these coins, I guess Dash didn't do an ICO, but
Nope.
no, but most of the coins in 2017 that were really coming up were all about, you know,
Mm-hmm.
creating on ETH in 15 minutes, what used to take a week or two anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happened. With
So,
the other, it was Y2K. Everybody beat a path to get new computers before Y2K. And then when Y2K hit, everyone had new computers. And so then there was no new computer purchases. There was no peripherals. There were no mice being bought. There were nothing. So all of a sudden, for the next 3 to 4 years, there's no replacement of any computers because they've been replaced all by that time. And that's what killed the dot-com boom is there were no computer sales.
yeah, it's
What
so
happens?
this is like my own mental thing of what I think happened or of the last few cycles, right? So obviously you have like no one cares about Bitcoin. 2013, all of a sudden we got a pop up to 1,000 a coin. Oh my gosh! Like that gets people's attention. 2017 was the first big alt cycle, as it were, and then the ICO boom and bust sort of popped that. And then you get to 2021, and then you get the FTX over leverage cycle that just washed it out. And Bitcoin's dominance is, it's not gone up. It's kind of, it fell off a cliff and whatever. It's still trending downward. But the point is, it's sort of solidified as the safe asset. It's eaten up a lot of this demand, for substitute goods. Again, there is no substitute. There's just, there's no second best or whatever the hell he says. It's all gone in there. And maybe as a fun prediction for this cycle, I think the treasury companies that we have, like obviously MicroStrategy being the big one, or strategy, whatever they call it today, is going to be the bubble that pops probably next year. And it's going to hit Bitcoin harder than the rest of the cycle or the rest of the space because it was all about Bitcoin leverage on Bitcoin. And that will be the catalyst for making fair value more accurate the next cycle, because Bitcoin is the only safe one, and now it's going to be shown as less safe than the rest of the rest of the market, and then we can all collectively move on and just value the space in what's the year, 2028 or so, 2029, whatever it is. What do you think of that? Is there agreement? Is there disagreement? Just a thing I have at the top of my head. I have not
So
researched
this,
this
okay, so this is where I would play devil's advocate with you on this.
for sure.
I believe that there's a transfer of wealth right now from fiat, and they need to go somewhere. And that the people with real money, they know that there's where are they going to put it? Real estate? Real estate's overpriced. What are they going to
Hmm.
put? Gold? Gold's shot up in price. I mean, yeah, I guess you could put it in gold. If they all went for gold, there wouldn't be enough gold. It would really go through the roof and scare everybody. But Bitcoin's a real easy transfer of value, Joel, because most wealthy people, they can transfer 10 million, 20 million, $100 million. And as the person who goes out and works for the fiat money gets trashed and the dollar goes to zero, they've got their money in Bitcoin. And it costs this much more dollars to get that, so they can still afford everything. So I believe that because the collapse of the dollar is, I mean, it's happening in front of our eyes. Like, I don't know, you're paying $1 trillion a year in debt, interest on debt, rather, just interest, 100 billion a month, right? Three billion a day in interest. How can that be sustained? Elon Musk says it can't. So what's going to happen is they're going to put their money in Bitcoin. The wealthy people are putting their money in Bitcoin. Okay, so is Bitcoin going to go down? I don't know. What if it doesn't? What if it just stabilizes here? What if it just stays around 100, 125,000 for a year or two and
Hmm.
alts catch up with fair value? Why not that? That's my scenario.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. I guess the psychological thing of like Bitcoin's the only safe asset has been kind of the narrative for the last couple of years. And
We
if
don't want to burst that though, do we? If that's going to affect alts.
well, it might affect it positively. It might be that because it's the only safe one, all the money goes there. If it's viewed as less safe, then money will go some there, but some other places too.
How about really safe, but there are a bunch of undervalued, just as safe or safer
Hmm.
bets that you can make right now. And that's my thing is I want to lift all ships. I don't want just Bitcoin is up here, and if Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down. And if Bitcoin goes up, everything goes up. No, why? Decouple.
Hmm.
Decouple.
Yes.
Let Bitcoin rise and fall based on its merits, and let the whole crypto fair value model come into play and lift the ships up to fair value. Does that mean Bitcoin won't have the dominance? No, it won't. But let the new money inflows go into new existing assets other than Bitcoin is what I'm saying. Why
Yeah,
why why does Bitcoin have to suffer for everyone else to do well?
exactly. Good point. So we got under 10 minutes to wrap this up. It's
Okay.
pitch time. So if they, I mean, thanks for being on for just like edifying everyone. This is great. But other than just edifying, what are you seeking here?
Oh, well, I would actually like a formal relationship with the Dash organization, and I want to really learn the actual numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have access to Binance and others that list your coin, I would guess, or have more power than somebody off the street would. And so if I can work with Dash, and same thing I want to do with Digibyte, same thing that I would love to do with any coin, Bells, anybody that Blackcoin, Zcash, anybody, Monero, Bitcoin Cash, Stellar Lumens, there's a lot of coins that we really, really love. We do our very best to get the real numbers for adoption, the real numbers for transactions, transaction value. Those come from exchanges. You're going to have I would have a better chance getting to those exchanges and getting real numbers if I could go there with Digibyte for Digibyte, but
Mm-hmm.
as a representative for Digibyte and as a representative for Dash and as a representative for Bells. And if I can collectively go to these exchanges as a representative for all these coins as part of the Digital Gold Foundation's collective, if you will, of coins that believe in this fair value, and we're trying to get the numbers. We're trying to make it a safer place for investors as a collective, as a self-regulating organization, we will have more power together.
Mm-hmm.
Together, divided we fall, together we stand. That's what I believe. So what I'm asking for is I would like some kind of a formal, I don't know how you guys do it at Dash, but I'd formally like to be invited in to look at the numbers of Dash
Mm-hmm.
and really get to the bottom of what is your adoption? Because if my numbers have you guys undervalued or overvalued, it's because I don't know your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know your developer ecosystem. I bet you can tell me how many engineers that you have. I don't know. I don't know. You
Mm-hmm.
have different types of proof of stake and proof of work. And so we look at those things to see, but we also look at how thinly traded is a coin or how heavily traded, because that also with a proof of stake, you have to buy into a heavily traded market versus a thin market. We don't know these things.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to know those things so that when people adopt the crypto fair value market, they adopt it because they know these numbers are the most legit numbers you will ever find on these things. So
Yeah.
that's my pitch to you in the Dash audiences. I know you guys vote for things and you actually give out
Mm-hmm.
money. I'm not asking for any money, none. I would
Just want
just like to
access.
work with, I want access. I want access to those Binance Merkle trees. I want access. I want to know your real numbers. So when I put up a report, I can absolutely stand by it if I'm talking to a state treasury who has $11 billion dollars and they're open to some crypto now for some reason. I can say, okay, let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
guys, I've taught you the crypto fair value numbers. I know these numbers to be absolutely
Yeah.
true because I worked with that team. That's my pitch to Dash. I need those numbers so I can go to hedge funds, so I can go to venture funds, so I can go to treasury companies, so that I can start a treasury company, so I can get in front of investors and not get sued for the wrong numbers
Mm-hmm.
because I got the best I could because I worked with this. There's my pitch.
Yeah. And so it's mostly exchanges, right? Talking to exchanges, getting the real numbers as far as like
Knowing the
who's.
developer ecosystem, being able to put out reports saying, what are you guys changing at
Mm-hmm.
Dash? Evolution was this year. What's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen with that and what's changing in the future? Digibyte's changing all the time. I love that about them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else are you guys doing? If I can get on the inside and understand that, then I can better represent Dash to investors of all stripes. If
Yeah.
I'm in front of a camera on CNBC, which I imagine I will be at some point, and I'm talking to just regular old mom and pops, and it's boomers, who still watch the television, who are sitting at
Hmm.
home, and I'm trying to explain to these boomers why Dash is a real bet. I can say, hey, look, I work with the team. This is what they've got coming out. I know their numbers are growing because I've seen the numbers. These are the numbers,
Hmm.
right? I want to be able to do that with any of the coins in the Digital Gold Foundation, portfolio,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. So it seems like the exchange part is the only thing that really requires some doing as far as like talking to them and saying, hey, can we get the numbers? Everything else, like I'm sure we'll talk in over the next couple days and weeks and such, but I think like Dash is so transparent as far as every because the way everyone gets things done typically is through the DAO, and the DAO is all public record. So like budgets, what people are spending on, what they do this, it's all very public. It's not super well publicized maybe, but it's very public. And so everything like that I know I can get you easily, except for the exchange stuff, and that's something that now will okay, well, it's more. I'll have to talk to you about how do we talk to them, and then we get it. But the point is, the exchange is the only part that it's like harder to guarantee. But it's again, according to what you told me, it seems like they are readily sharing this kind of information.
Binance only.
Oh,
Kraken
Binance only.
won't, for whatever reason. Coinbase won't. Gemini won't, for whatever reason. This is what the Litecoin team told me.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if we all went to them, to Kraken and Coinbase and wherever you guys are listed, and say collectively, we need these numbers. And by
Mm-hmm.
the way, it's better for Coinbase and those if we have a thriving market where the numbers go from 450 million globally to a billion crypto users.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone benefits.
Yeah. So at least if we do get Binance, because you said they do talk, what's how much does that help your numbers? I know they're a
Oh
big
my
fish.
Lord. Huge. Here's why. Because if we know the numbers from Binance, we can extrapolate. If we
Mm.
look at their US market and they have outside the US, we can look at the US market for any of these coins and know that and say, well, then at Kraken, if they have 10 million users, and if 4% of the Binance people own Digibyte or Dash or whichever coin, then they're probably the same numbers over here or pretty close. Do we have exact numbers yet? No, but we're closer. We're definitely closer now, right? So
Yes.
anything that gets us closer.
All right. Well, we'll get this done
That's the
then.
ask. Oh, and of course, I would ask if anybody watching this podcast can come and follow at Digital Gold Talk. We're about to hit 500 followers. We've been around talking for since February, really, but really we've just started talking this week again. And we'd love to get to 1,000. So come follow us at Digital Gold Talk, and I will
Yes.
be discussing Dash along with other coins.
I'm putting that up on the
Thank you.
screen as well as
Thank you.
the foundation's website here, Digital Gold
Awesome.
Foundation.
Awesome.
It's very interesting stuff. So thanks very much for being on. We're going to definitely
Thanks, Joe.
get this shared out and stuff. Everyone, thanks for watching. This has been a fun podcast. Follow John and all his stuff, and
And
yeah,
follow Joel, and hopefully he'll be talking about crypto fair value and more people at Dash. By the way, Joel, last thing, the more people at Dash that understand crypto fair value and believe in crypto fair value, it's sort of like if we all believe, Tinkerbell's real, right?
hmm,
Like, let's all
yeah.
believe and make it real.
Well,
That's
let
what
me
I
actually
believe.
drop it with that teaser I sort of mentioned before,
Okay.
about like I'm I'm considering an ecosystem token of sorts that I will mentally peg to $1 per coin. Of course, who you print a bunch of money, doesn't matter. But then if you start mentally pricing it that, and then you have enough people that are buying it worth $1, then you could have some magic happen. But let's just leave that teaser for there. We'll have plenty more
All
of
right.
that. Thanks everyone. Have a great weekend, and yeah, see you around.
Thanks.